It's funny how you can live in the same house as someone for years and never really see them. I mean, truly see them. I didn't even realize how much I had been disappearing in my own life, like a shadow in my own home, until that moment. It's strange how one text can shift everything, but it's not really the message itself. It's what it represents. And that moment, when I finally understood that I was already gone, didn't happen all at once. It started with a feeling, a nagging, suffocating feeling, like the space between us had grown too wide for me to bridge. I'd been watching her for weeks before I even realized I was watching. At first, it was easy to dismiss. She'd leave the house early, come back late. It was part of the routine. She'd say she was working late, or there were things to handle with clients. I believed her, why wouldn't I? She'd smile, kiss me goodnight, and then vanish into her phone, her eyes glued to the screen in the way someone does when they're not really there, not really with you. But the strange thing was, it wasn't just the absence of her physical presence that bothered me. It was the way she began to become someone else. I started to notice the little things. The way she'd click her phone lock screen just a bit too quickly when I entered the room. The way she'd change the subject if I mentioned her work. But more than anything, it was the silence that got to me. The silence between us was louder than anything we ever said. Our conversations used to be effortless, even when we talked about the most mundane things. Now, even small talk felt like pulling teeth. And I kept asking myself, when did I become a ghost? I'd sit on the couch, in the same room, while she worked on her laptop at the dining table. She'd type away, occasionally glancing at me, but never really seeing me. The silence wasn't uncomfortable at first. I told myself it was normal. Sometimes, people just get busy, right? Sometimes you don't always have the energy to keep up with a conversation. But the longer it went on, the more I started to feel like I was fading into the walls. I wasn't a person to her anymore. I was a fixture, a part of the background scenery. One night, something inside me snapped. She was on the phone again, as usual, when I came home from work. This time, I didn't just let it slide. I didn't ask her who she was talking to. I just watched her. The way her voice changed when she spoke. It wasn't the voice I knew. It wasn't the voice she used with me. It was softer, almost playful. I knew that tone. I knew that tone from the first few months we met, when everything was new and we were figuring each other out. That tone belonged to someone else. I waited until she hung up, and then I asked, "Who was that?" She didn't look up from her phone at first. When she finally did, there was something behind her eyes that I hadn't seen in a long time. Something distant, something closed off. "Just a colleague," she said, as though it was nothing. But I could tell she wasn't telling me the whole truth. That wasn't the way you speak when you're talking to a colleague. I could see the lie in her eyes, and for the first time, I didn't look away. I didn't confront her. Not yet. But I felt something deep in my gut. That feeling, the one you try to ignore, but it gnaws at you until it eats you whole. I thought about it all night. She was hiding something, but I didn't know what. And then it happened. The following weekend, we were supposed to spend the day together. We hadn't done that in ages, just the two of us. No work, no distractions. But I knew something was off the moment she got up that morning. She moved around the house in silence, avoiding eye contact, her mind somewhere else. I tried to engage her, but the words felt like they didn't matter anymore. She gave me one-word answers, her focus still fixed on the phone in her hand. I decided to go out for a walk. I needed air. I couldn't breathe in that house anymore. When I came back, the house was quieter than usual. Caroline was nowhere to be found. I checked the bedroom, the living room. No sign of her. I heard the sound of the door creaking open in the hallway, and I walked toward it instinctively, thinking she must have stepped outside. But what I saw stopped me dead in my tracks. She wasn't alone. She was standing in the doorway with a man. Not just any man, but someone I recognized. A familiar face I hadn't seen in years. His name was Greg, an old friend of hers, someone I thought had drifted out of our lives. But now he was here, standing in our hallway like it was the most natural thing in the world. The moment I saw them, the knot in my stomach tightened. They didn't see me. They didn't hear me as I stood there, frozen. Caroline was laughing, a real, deep laugh that I hadn't heard in months. And Greg was laughing too. Their voices were light, easy, as if they shared a private joke that I wasn't a part of. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just an observer in my own life. I was invisible. I turned around, my heart pounding, and walked back out the door without a word. It wasn't about Greg. It wasn't even about Caroline at that moment. It was about me. about what had happened to me in this marriage. I wasn't a person anymore. I was nothing. I left. I didn't know where I was going. The streets were cold, and the darkness felt like it was swallowing me whole, but I didn't care. All I could think about was the laughter I had just heard, the sound of her voice, so free, so alive. But not with me. It wasn't just the fact that she was with another man that hurt. It was the realization that she had changed. This wasn't the woman I married. This wasn't the woman I thought I knew. I walked for hours, trying to clear my mind, but the questions kept coming. Why hadn't she told me? Why was she hiding it? Every step I took felt heavier. The world seemed like it was collapsing on me, and the only thing I could do was move forward, even though I wasn't sure where I was headed. I ended up at a small park near our neighborhood. It was empty, just the hum of distant traffic and the occasional rustle of leaves. I sat on a bench, staring at the ground. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I ignored it at first. I knew who it was. It had to be Caroline. After a few minutes, I pulled it out. I wasn't ready to talk to her. I didn't know if I ever would be. But when I saw the message, I froze. I'll make it up to you, I promise. I don't know why, but something in those words hit me harder than anything else. It wasn't even the words themselves. It was the desperation behind them. I could picture her sitting there, tapping out the message, hoping I'd read it, hoping I'd forgive her. And it stung, because I wanted to forgive her. But the truth was, I didn't know who she was anymore. It wasn't just a mistake. She didn't accidentally laugh with Greg the way she used to laugh with me. She didn't accidentally hide things from me for months. This wasn't something I could just brush off. The trust had been shattered. And once trust was gone, could anything really be salvaged? I stared at the message for what felt like an eternity, my thumb hovering over the reply button. My heart was torn. Part of me wanted to pick up the phone, walk back home, and pretend none of this had happened. Part of me just wanted to forget about everything and go back to the way things were before I knew the truth. But another part of me, the part that had been slowly suffocating, told me that I couldn't go back, that I deserved more than being someone's afterthought. I wasn't a backup plan. I wasn't a placeholder for when things went wrong. I was a person, a partner, a husband, and I couldn't let myself fade into the background any longer. I didn't reply to her message. I couldn't. And that was when I realized I had already checked out. I wasn't just walking away from her. I was walking away from the version of myself I had become in this relationship. The version that allowed her to slip away without saying anything. The version that kept hoping for a change when I knew, deep down, it wasn't coming. As I stood up from the bench, I knew I had to go back to the house, not to fix things, but to make sure I had the closure I needed. To make sure that I wasn't running from something, but choosing to leave for the right reasons. I don't think she was expecting me to come back. She probably thought I'd just disappear like I always did, silent, withdrawn, avoiding confrontation. But this time, things were different. I wasn't the man who waited in the background anymore. I wasn't the man who allowed her to take me for granted. I was walking away. For good. When I got home, the front door creaked open and the usual smell of her perfume didn't greet me like it always did. The house felt colder, quieter. I could feel the weight of my decision pressing on my chest, making it harder to breathe with each step I took inside. The faint hum of the refrigerator, the soft clicking of the clock on the wall, the sound of my own heartbeat, all of it felt deafening in the silence. It was as though the house itself knew things had changed. I didn't see her immediately. I wasn't sure if I even wanted to. Caroline had sent me that message. I'll make it up to you, I promise. And I knew that it was a hollow promise. Because in the deepest part of me, I knew she had already made her choice. She had chosen him. I walked into the living room, my eyes scanning the space for her. The familiar sight of the couch, the books on the coffee table, the framed pictures of our kids. All of it seemed foreign to me now. I could hear the faint sound of the TV in the background, the volume low enough to just be a murmur. I followed the sound and found her, sitting there, staring at the screen with that same blank expression I'd seen so many times before. When she heard the door shut behind me, she turned. Her eyes widened for a second before she quickly masked it with a smile. "You're back," she said softly, but there was something about her voice, something empty, something distant. She wasn't happy to see me. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I stood there for a moment, just looking at her. I wanted to say so many things, to demand answers, to scream, to cry, but nothing came out. I felt like I was staring at a stranger. The woman I had married, the woman I had loved, was gone. I wasn't sure if she had ever really been here. Are you just going to stand there? She asked, her voice tinged with annoyance now, like she was irritated by my presence. Sit down. We need to talk. Her words hit me like a slap. We needed to talk? Did she really think we could just pick up where we left off? Did she think I'd sit here and pretend everything was fine after what I had just learned? I sat down, but it wasn't out of respect. It was because I didn't know what else to do. I was so tired of trying to hold it together, of pretending that this wasn't slowly destroying me. My mind was a mess, racing from one thought to the next, trying to make sense of everything. But the only thing that was clear was that I had been wrong about everything. She leaned forward, the nervousness in her posture obvious now. I'm sorry, okay? She started, her voice trembling slightly. I never meant for you to find out like this. It was strange hearing her apologize. It felt so empty. She hadn't meant for me to find out. That was her excuse. She thought she could keep this from me forever. The betrayal wasn't just in the act. It was in the way she thought I was too stupid to notice, too blind to see what was happening right under my nose. I don't want to hear your excuses, I said, my voice cold, harder than I intended. I wasn't even looking at her anymore. I couldn't. You've already made your choice. You've already made it clear. Don't sit there and act like you didn't. The words cut through the air like a knife, and for a moment, she seemed to shrink. She wasn't the confident woman who used to stand tall in front of me. Now, she was just small, vulnerable, even. I don't know what you want me to say, she whispered. Her eyes were wide now, almost pleading. I know I've messed up, but I swear, it didn't mean anything. Greg was just someone I needed to talk to. He was there for me when. Don't. I interrupted her, the anger building up inside me. Don't stand there and tell me it didn't mean anything. You were laughing with him. You were comfortable with him. You can't lie to me anymore, Caroline. I've seen it. The silence stretched between us like an ocean, and for the first time in a long while, I realized that I wasn't the man I used to be. The man who would forgive, who would turn a blind eye. I was someone else now, someone who was done pretending. I'm done, I said, finally meeting her gaze. I'm done with all of this. I don't need your promises. I don't need your lies. Her face crumbled, and for a split second, I felt a flicker of guilt. But it disappeared just as quickly as it came. I had to do this. For me. For my own sanity. I wasn't going to spend another minute chasing after something that was already gone. I stood up, my legs heavy, my chest tight. Caroline stayed seated, her face a mixture of regret and disbelief. She was speechless now, probably expecting me to stay, to listen to whatever else she had to say, but I couldn't. Not anymore. I turned, walked toward the door, and didn't look back. As I closed it behind me, I knew that whatever came next, I was never going to be the same person again. The cold night air hit me as I stepped outside, the streetlights flickering faintly. I walked aimlessly, my mind swirling in a haze of confusion and anger. My heart raced, and yet, everything felt numb. I couldn't believe what I had just done. I had just walked away from the woman I thought I'd spend my life with. But in that moment, I realized I was walking away from something even more important, myself. I didn't even care where I was going. I just needed to be anywhere but there, away from the suffocating tension that filled the house. The more I replayed that scene in my head, the clearer it became. Caroline wasn't sorry. She wasn't sorry because she had never thought she would get caught. She wasn't sorry because she was caught in the act. She was sorry because I was finally done. I couldn't bring myself to go home just yet. I found myself standing in front of a small diner, the neon lights casting a dull glow. The place was nearly empty, save for a few lonely souls in booths and at the counter. I sat down at the far end, too tired to think, but too alert to sleep. I stared at my phone, but I couldn't bring myself to check it. I had to not look. I didn't want to see another text from her. I didn't want to hear any more apologies. I didn't want to feel the weight of her lies. The waitress came over and offered a small smile. She was polite, almost too polite, as if she could sense the heaviness in the air. I ordered coffee, something to numb me, something to keep me grounded in this moment of chaos. As I sat there, sipping my coffee slowly, I started to wonder how long I had been living in this illusion. How many years had I spent believing in a marriage that wasn't real? How much longer would I have kept pretending if I hadn't found out about Greg? I could feel my hands shaking as I set the cup down on the table. The truth had already set itself in motion, and now there was no going back. The longer I sat there, the more I realized that the only way forward was to let go. I had to make a decision. It was either keep holding on to the remnants of something that had died a long time ago, or let myself breathe again. I sent her one last text, one final message. We're done, Caroline. Don't try to fix this. There's nothing left to fix. I pressed send, knowing it was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but the right thing. And then I turned off my phone. The silence in the diner was almost too much to bear, but it felt like a relief at the same time. No more lies. No more pretending. I had made my decision, and for the first time in months, it felt like I was breathing again. I'd sent the message to Caroline, and it was out of my hands now. The weight of it had left me feeling lighter, but there was a small voice in the back of my mind that wouldn't stop whispering. Did you do the right thing? I didn't know the answer. Part of me wanted to believe that walking away was the right thing, that I deserved better, that I could find happiness again. But another part of me, one that I couldn't quite silence, kept reminding me of the life I had built with her. The years we spent together, the laughter, the struggles, the dreams we once shared. It wasn't supposed to end like this. It wasn't supposed to end with me sitting alone in a dimly lit diner, staring at a message I couldn't take back. I finished my coffee and stood up, paying the waitress without a word. As I walked out, the cool night air hit me again, sharper than before, and I felt it. The space around me felt so vast, so empty. I had no destination, no clear path ahead. I wasn't running toward something. I was just running away. I needed to think. I needed time to process everything that had happened. As I wandered through the streets, my mind raced. I couldn't escape the image of Caroline's face when I walked out of the house, her eyes wide with disbelief. She had tried to hold on, to explain herself, but there was nothing left to say. The trust between us had shattered, and once that's gone, can you ever truly get it back? I kept asking myself that question over and over again, and the answer was always the same. No, you can't. I found myself standing by a small park, the swings gently moving in the breeze. I don't know why I was drawn to it, but I sat on one, my feet pushing against the ground absent-mindedly. My mind kept going back to the days before everything fell apart. The way we used to talk for hours, the plans we made for the future. How did we go from that to this? How did it go from love to silence? A text buzzed in my pocket. I pulled my phone out, half expecting it to be Caroline, but it wasn't. It was a notification from my old friend, Liam. He was someone I hadn't spoken to in years, but he had reached out a few times over the past few months. I hadn't responded. I hadn't felt like I had anything to offer him or anyone. But tonight, I opened the message. Hey man, you good? I've been thinking about you lately. Let me know if you need anything. I stared at the screen for a long time, the words sinking in deeper than I expected. It was strange. Liam had been there for me through some of the hardest moments of my life. But somehow, I had shut everyone out when things started to fall apart. I thought I could handle it on my own. But tonight, it felt different. I wasn't alone in this. I had friends. I had people who cared, who weren't caught up in the mess Caroline and I had created. I quickly typed a response. Thanks, Liam. I'm not okay, but I think I'm getting there. Before I could think too much about it, I hit send. It felt strange, but in a way, it was comforting. I wasn't alone. Not entirely. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like I might be able to find my way back. The night dragged on, and I found myself walking through the quiet streets, not sure what was next, but feeling strangely hopeful. The silence that had once consumed me wasn't so suffocating anymore. I didn't have all the answers, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going back. No matter how many times Caroline texted, no matter how many promises she made, I had already moved on. I had no idea where this new path would lead, but for the first time in months, I felt like I was taking control of my own life again. The night dragged on, and with every step, the weight I had carried for so long felt lighter. For the first time in months, I wasn't consumed by the tension at home. My mind wasn't swirling with thoughts of betrayal, lies, and confusion. I wasn't looking over my shoulder at Caroline's every move, wondering what she was hiding. I had decided. I had walked away. But even as I kept telling myself it was for the best, I couldn't deny the knot that had formed in my stomach. The quiet, nagging voice in my head that kept whispering, is this really over? Was there no chance of fixing what we had? Was the damage irreversible? It wasn't until I got home that the answers started to materialize. I had barely stepped through the door when my phone buzzed in my pocket again. This time, it wasn't from Liam. It wasn't from anyone else either. It was from Caroline. I stared at the screen, the message glowing back at me, and I felt a strange kind of coldness wash over me. I need to see you. Please. The words were simple, almost pleading, but they hit harder than anything I had expected. She didn't even have the courage to say what she wanted or what she thought could happen. It was just a desperate plea to meet. I didn't know what to do. I had already made my choice. I had already told her everything I needed to say, but something about that message, it unsettled me. Was it guilt? Was it that same old version of her that thought she could fix everything with a few words? I couldn't tell. But I knew one thing. I couldn't keep running forever. I stared at the message for a long time, weighing my options. The silence was deafening as the room seemed to close in on me. Should I reply? Should I meet her? Could I even handle it? I stood there for what felt like hours, staring at Caroline's message. I had told myself that I was done, that I wasn't going to let myself be dragged back into the mess that had consumed me for months. But her words, they stirred something inside me. That small flicker of hope I had buried deep down kept whispering. Maybe she really is sorry. Maybe this can be fixed. But I didn't trust that voice. It was the same voice that had told me everything was fine before. The same voice that had allowed me to ignore the signs, to dismiss the coldness between us. I wasn't that person anymore. I couldn't afford to be. I took a deep breath and typed out a quick reply. I don't think we have anything left to talk about. It felt good, to be firm, to be decisive. I hit send and immediately regretted it. The coldness of my response didn't sit well with me. Maybe I should have been more empathetic. But I couldn't go back. I couldn't allow myself to be weak. Not again. Before I could talk myself into rethinking my decision, my phone buzzed once more. I braced myself. Caroline had replied, but it wasn't what I expected. Please, just listen. I can't fix this on my own. You have to help me. I stared at those words. For a moment, I almost cracked. She was still trying to reach me, still asking for help, even after everything. She was still holding on. But was that enough? Was a plea like that enough to make me turn around and give it all another shot? The truth was, I didn't know. I sat on the couch, my mind a whirlwind. I kept thinking about everything she had said before, all the apologies, the promises she made. But when it came down to it, she had already shown me where her priorities lay. She had already made her choice. And even though I loved her, even though the memories of us, of what we were, still tugged at my heart, I knew I couldn't let myself stay trapped in that cycle. I needed to let go, for my own sanity. And just as I made up my mind, my phone buzzed again. This time, I didn't even hesitate before opening it. It was a simple message. I'm sorry. Just those 2 words. It was like everything came crashing down at once. The apology sounded sincere, but at the same time, it was too late. I realized in that moment, standing there in the quiet of my apartment, that I had already said goodbye. There was no going back. I wasn't angry anymore. Not really. I had let the anger go when I walked away the first time. Now, I was just done. The silence that filled my heart wasn't just from her absence. It was from the realization that I had been waiting for something that wasn't coming. She was never going to be the person I wanted her to be. I put my phone down and stood up. The weight I had been carrying for so long didn't vanish, but it shifted. It became bearable. It became something I could live with. The road ahead wasn't clear, but it didn't matter. I had made my choice, and for the first time in ages, I felt like I was choosing myself. I grabbed my coat, walked out the door, and didn't look back. The night was colder than I expected as I walked down the street, but for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of clarity. The weight that had pressed on my chest for so long, the constant tension, the confusion, the uncertainty, had finally begun to lift. I didn't know exactly what was next for me, but I knew that I was no longer trapped in a situation that was draining me. It's funny how, in moments of crisis, you realize just how strong you truly are. I had spent so much time focusing on the past, on what I'd lost, that I had forgotten to look ahead. But now, I could see a future. I could see a future that didn't revolve around fixing something that was broken beyond repair. A future that wasn't defined by betrayal or the suffocating silence of a broken marriage. I didn't know what the next chapter would hold, but for the first time in months, I wasn't scared of it. I was actually excited. As I walked, I pulled out my phone again, this time with a sense of purpose. I had messages from friends, people I hadn't talked to in ages. And then there was Liam's message, the one I had answered earlier. I clicked on it again, reading his words one more time. Hey man, you good? I've been thinking about you lately. Let me know if you need anything. I smiled, feeling something stir inside me. I wasn't alone. I had people who cared, people who saw me, people who were there for me. I wasn't invisible anymore. I typed out a quick reply. Thanks, Liam. I'm good. I think I'm finally starting to be. And then I realized this was only the beginning. I wasn't defined by what had happened to me. I was defined by how I moved forward. I didn't need Caroline's validation or anyone else's, for that matter. I had everything I needed inside myself. The strength to stand up, to walk away, and to choose my own happiness. The night seemed to brighten as I continued walking, my steps lighter than they had been in months. There was a whole world out there waiting for me, a world full of possibilities, and I was no longer afraid to face it. I didn't have it all figured out, and maybe I never would. But for the first time in a long time, I felt alive, really alive. And that was enough. The future was waiting, and I was ready for it.